Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome again for this amazing episode. As Asake began to raise her daughter, Temitope, the echoes of her own childhood loomed large in her mind. The shadows of her lineage, steeped in the ancient art of witchcraft, left both familiar and doubting. From the very beginning, it was clear that Temitope possessed a striking resemblance to her mother, not just in appearance but in character and abilities. Temitope exhibited an uncanny affinity for nature. From her earliest days, she could coax flowers to bloom with gentle touch and attract butterflies with her laughter. The animals of the forest seemed drawn to her presence, instinctively recognizing the magic that flowed within her veins. Asake marveled at her daughter's gifts, feeling a blend of pride and anxiety. As seasons changed, Asake endeavored to guide Temitope, instilling in her the wisdom of their ancestors. Understand the light of the moon. They would gather herbs together and Asake would share the teachings passed down through generations. With great power comes great responsibility. She would remind her daughter, her voice filled with both caution and love. She wanted her Temitope to understand that their abilities were not just tools for influence but instruments of healing and connection. Yet, despite Asake's efforts, the whispers of the villagers grew louder as Temitope blossomed into a young girl. "Look at her, just like her mother," they would murmur, their voices tinged with trepidations. Asake would see the concern in their eyes, the unease that bubbled beneath the surface. It was a burden that weighed heavily on both mother and daughter, an even present reminder of the legacy they carried. In their home, Asake worked tirelessly to create a sanctuary for Temitope, filling it with laughter, stories of their lineage, and the sweetest scents of herbs brews. She introduced her daughter to the ancient practices of their family, embracing kindness and compassion as the true essence of their gifts. Together, they would practice rituals that honor the earth and the spirit that watched over them. Temitope thrived in the nurturing environment, her laughter ringing like music through the trees. However, with each display of her bargaining abilities, Asake felt the weight of anxiety pressing down on her. She feared that the villagers' suspicion would not only shadow Temitope's childhood but also determine her destiny. As the sun set over Ayatoro, Asake could only hope that the love and wisdom she imparted would guide her daughter to forge her own path, one that would not be defined by darkness of their past. In her heart, she knew that together they could create a new legacy, one that would blend the strengths of their heritage with the promise of a bright future. Asake dedicated herself to training Temitope in the ways of kindness and compassion, believing wholeheartedly that the strength of their lineage welded for good. Every day, she emphasized the importance of helping others, encouraging her daughter to engage in good deeds that would strengthen their bond with the community. Together, they would visit the sick and elderly, preparing herbal remedies to soothe ailments and alleviate suffering. Asake taught Temitope how to listen to the stories of those in need, instilling in her the values of empathy and understanding. They would gather food for those who had fallen on hard times, reminding the village that no one should face hardships alone. But as much as Asake tried to stir Temitope's path toward light, the powerful magic inherited from her lineage was a current that could not be easily escaped. It bubbled beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. One afternoon, while helping neighbors mend their broken fence, Temitope became frustrated with the stubbornness of a wayward vine that kept creeping into their yard. In a moment of exasperation, she instinctively raised her hands, and the vine twisted and coiled obediently, retreating from the fence as if responding to a command. Asake watched in awe and concern, knowing that this was not the first time her daughter and unknowingly displayed a flake of magic that ran in their blood. Despite her mother's teachings, Temitope couldn't help feel the pull of their inherited powers. There were times when she would catch herself whispering incantation she had never learned, drawn to the ancient one that danced on the edges of her mind. It was as if the very essence of witchcraft was woven into her being, and no amount of training could fully suppress it. Asake sensed the struggle within her daughter, the desire to good mood battling against the innate gift that threatened to manifest in unexpected ways. My love, she would say gently, it is not the magic that defines you, it is how you choose to use it. You must always lead with your heart, for that is the truth power you possess. With every action of kindness Temitope performed, she felt the tension between her intentions and her abilities grow. While she took a pride in helping others, the villagers' apprehensions about her lineage remained. They began to notice a small display of magic, and whispers of unease began to circulate once more. It became clear to Asake that despite her best efforts, Temitope's magic could not be ignored or evaded. Instead, they have to find a way to embrace it, to show the world that the gifts could be a force for healing and transformation. Together, they would navigate their complex journey, learning to balance the power of witchcraft with the values of life and compassion, forging a new path for their family that transcended the darkness of the past. As the sun began to rise over Aitoro, casting a warm golden glow on the village, an ominous darkness loomed on the horizon. Whispers of great calamity spread like wildfire among the villagers, igniting fear and panic in their hearts. The elders spoke of a divine distribution coming for the community, a punishment for the years of neglect, disdain, and shown toward the natural world and the spirits that governed. Asake felt the unease set like a storm cloud over her home. She watched as Temitope, now a young woman, grappled with the weight of her lineage. The darkness that had once filled Asake's heart now passed within her daughter with her compassion and determination. Temitope understood the gravity of the situation and sensed that only she could intervene. One fateful day, as the villagers prepared for the worst, a massive storm began to brew on the horizon. The winds howled, and the skies turned on an ominous shade of grey. The villagers rushed to secure their homes, their fear babbled in the air. But amid the chaos, Temitope stood resolute, her heart racing with the knowledge that she had to act. Drawn upon the immense power she had inherited, she closed her eyes and focused on the connection she had cultivated with the land and its spirits. The memories of her mother's teaching filled her mind. How magic was not merely a tool for power, but a conduit for healing and restoration. Temitope felt the weight of her dark abilities, but instead of allowing them to consume her, she turned them into a force for good. As the storm intensified, she raised her hands to the sky, calling upon the ancient forces that flowed through her blood. With each incantation she halted, she wove tapestry of light and energy, channeling the very essence of the earth. The wind began to shift, and the clouds that threatened to unleash their fury began to retreat, swirling away from the village. In that moment, Temitope understood that the duality of her power, the darkness that had once caused her fear, could also be a protector. as the villagers watched in astonishment. The storms transformed into a gentle rain, nourishing the parched earth and revitalizing the crops that had suffered from years of neglect. The very calamity that had threatened their lives was turned into a blessing. But the villagers were not merely passive observers. They felt the change in the air, a palpable shift in the energy surrounding them. With renewed hope, they joined Temitope, standing together as one. They feared their own prayers, expressing gratitude for the gifts of the earth and vowing to honor the spirits they had once disrespected. As the storm subsided, the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the village with a golden light. The people of Yaitoro, realizing the true power of unity and respect for the world around them, they approached Temitope, their fear transformed into a reverence and gratitude. They recognized that she was not just a reflection of her mother's legacy but a beacon of hope for a brighter future. In saving the village from calamity, Temitope had not only embraced a dark power but redefined its meaning. She had proven that the true strength lies in the abilities of honest one's gifts for the greater good, to heal rather than harm, and not to turn fear into love. With her mother by her side, Temitope forged a new path for their lineage, one where magic was a force for transformation, and where the bond between the villagers and the spirits of the land flourished anew. As the seasons turned and Ayetoro thrived under Temitope's watchful guidance, a quiet sadness began to weave its way through the fabric of her life. Asake, her beloved mother who had been both a teacher and an anchor, started to weaken. The burden of her past, the sacrifices she had made, and the darkness she had battled took its toll on her spirit. Temitope watched helplessly as her mother's once vibrant energy began to fade. Asake's hands, which had so often wield the powers of the nature, trembled as she prepared herbs and potions for her last time. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Asake gathered Temitope close and whispered the wisdom she had gleaned over her lifetime. Remember, my child, my power is not just a gift, it is a responsibility. Honor it till you grow stronger within you. With those final words, Asake closed her eyes for the last time, leaving Temitope alone with the weight of their lineage. The loss felt like a chasm opening within her, an emptiness that echoed with grief. In that moment, Temitope became the sole remnant of their lineage that had spanned the generations, the last bearer of their family's powerful heritage. Though her heart ached with sorrow, Temitope knew that her mother's spirit lived on within her. She vowed to honor Asake's memory by not only maintaining the power they shared but also strengthening it in ways that would benefit the village and the land. Determined to embrace her legacy, she sought to deepen her connection to the natural world around her. In the months that followed, Temitope immersed herself in the teachings of her mother. She delved deeper into the ancient texts and rituals that Asake passed down, seeking to expand her understanding for the craft. Every day, she practiced incantations and meditated beneath the great baobab tree that stood at the edge of the village, drawing strength from its roots that ran deep into the earth. Temitope also forged new connections with the spirits of the land. She would spend hours in the forest listening to the whispers of the wind and the rustlings of the leaves. Animals that had once flocked to her mother's now came to her, sensing her determination and powerful magic that passed within her. With each encounter, her abilities grew more refined and potent. As she nurtured her powers, Temitope made a point to share her knowledge with the villagers. She organized gatherings where she taught them about the importance of honoring nature and respecting the spirits that surrounded them. In doing so, She created a community bound by love, gratitude, and shared purpose, healing the rifts that had once threatened to tear them apart. Through an unwavering dedication and love for her mother's memory, Temitope transformed her grief into strength. She became a beacon of hope for the village, embodying the very essence of their lineage, while also forging a new path. With each day, her past grew more profound as a means of control or fear, but a source of unity and harmony. In honoring her mother, Temitope embraced her identity fully, knowing that she was not just a remnant of her lineage, but a powerful force for good in her own right. As she stood beneath the stars, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, she knew that Asake would always be with her, guiding her on the journey that lay ahead. One on one fateful evening, the air was thick with sorrow as Temitope sat alone in her compound mourning the recent passing of her beloved mother, Asake. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the earth. As night fell, a palpable sense of unease crept into the atmosphere, but Temitope, consumed by grief, remained unaware of the impending danger lurking just beyond the flagging candlelight. As she sat in silence, remembering the lessons her mother had imparted, a group of villagers approached her compound, their faces twisted with resentment and fear. Though Temitope had worked tirelessly to mend the rift between her and the community, some still had deep-seated animosity toward her lineage. The whisper that followed her mother now targeted Temitope, fueled by the belief that her powers were a curse upon the village. With a sinister resolve, the group ambushed Temitope as she mourned, breaking through the protective boundaries of her compound. They shouted accusations, their voices echoed through the night, blaming her for the misfortune that had befallen Ayetoro since her mother's death. In their minds, she had inherited the darknesses that had once plagued her family. As they surrounded her, the air cracked with tension. One of the villagers, a once respected elder turned Bira, wielding a, twist, wielding a twisted staff adorned with symbols of their ancestors. You think your past can shield you from the consequences of the lineage? His part will you will not suffer in the silence any longer. Before Temitope could react, the elder raised his staff and unleashed a spell, a dark incantation that had been buried in their animals for life. In the annals of time, the words fell from his lips like poison, wrapping around Temitope and binding her in place. A chilling wave of energy surged through her as she felt an icy grip on her heart, a sensation she had never known before. In that moment, the spell took hold, twisted her, and snaring her in a web of darkness. It marked the beginning of her downfall. The energy she had once flowed through her like a river of light now felt corrupted. Tainted by the elder's hatred, she cried out, desperate, trying to break free. But the spell tightened around her, pulling her in an abyss of despair. As the villagers looked on, their expressions shifted from anger to horror. They had sought to punish Temitope, yet in their blind rage, they had unleashed a force far greater than they had anticipated. The very much they had feared now surged uncontrollably, and in a flash of blinding light, the balance she had worked so hard to maintain began to unravel. The aftermath of the ambush, Temitope was left standing alone in her compound, the weight of the curse heavy upon her. The night had transformed into a cacophony of channels, and the peace she had cultivated began to crumble. The villagers who had once viewed her as a beacon of hope now looked upon her with a mixture of fear and regret, realizing too late the consequences of their actions. What had started as an evening of mourning and spiraled into a nightmare that would haunt her for generations to come. With a powerful twist and a heart heavy with grief, Temitope faced an uncertain future, one that would test her resolve, redefine her very identity. The journey to reclaim her magic and restore harmony to her life and the village was just beginning, and she knew the shadows of the past would continue to loom large over her destiny. In the days and weeks that followed the ambush and the casting of Temitope, the village of the Aitoro fell into disarray. The once vibrant community now a shadow of its former self. The absence of Temitope's guiding presence left a palpable void, a chasm that echoed with fears and insecurities that had long simmered beneath the surface. The effects of the curse rippled through the village like a violent storm, with Temitope's magic to nurture the land and connect the villagers into the spirit that governed their lives. Crops began to wither. The field that had once flourished with abundant harvest now lay barren. The earth cracked and they dried under the unrelenting sun. The villagers watched in despair as their livelihoods crumbled, uncertainty drowning at their hearts. As the once familiar rhythms of life began to falter, a sense of restlessness took hold among the people. Meetings that had been filled with laughter and camaraderie now devolved into heated arguments. Old grievances resurfaced, and the bond that united them frayed under the stress of their shared suffering. Disrupts spread like wildfire, each villager looking to blame another for their misfortune, deepening the fractures within the community. Nightmares haunted their sleep, shadows whispering of ancient curses and dark omens. The villagers, once proud and strong, became shadows of themselves, their spirits crushed under the weight of uncertainty. Children, who had once played freely in their fields, now cowered in their homes, their laughter replaced by the echoes of fear and confusion. With no one to lead them, the elders, once guardians of wisdom, grew divided, their voices drowned out of the cacophony of echoes. They scrabbled how to remend the crisis, each proposing conflict rituals and offering to appease the unseen forces that believed they were punishing them. The village square, once a place of gathering and celebrations, became a battleground of dissent and paranoia. The restless villagers began to turn on one another, fueled by the desperate need to find a scapegoat for their plight. Whispers of witchcraft and betrayal filled the air, igniting accusations that fastened like open wounds. Who had shared meals and sorrows now eyed each other with suspicion, as if one of them might be harboring the malevolent spirit that cursed their lives. In the absence of Temitope's nurturing magic, the spirits of the land grew restless as well. The once harmonious balance between the villagers and the natural world fractured, leading to the strange occurrence. Livestock failed to heal, storms railed in unexpectedly, and the once bountiful rivers ran dry. Nature itself seemed to respond to the turmoil, amplifying the villagers' fears and solidifying their belief that a dark force had taken hold of Aitor. As the sun set each day, the village was enveloped in a shroud of despair. The night brought not peace but anxiety, the shadows cast by flickering lanterns taking on menacing shape. The villagers huddled in their homes, their hearts heavy with worry, lamenting the loss of their hope and unity that had once defined their lives. Amidst the chaos, Temitope remained a distant figure, haunted by the curse that entrusted her powers and severed her connection to the village. The restlessness of Aitoro echoed in her heart, a painful reminder of the life she had once fought to protect. With each passing day, the darkness grew thicker, threatening to swallow the village would unless someone could restore the balance that had been so cruelly disrupted. As the days turned to weeks and the turmoil in the Ayatoro deepened, a profound sense of regret began to settle over the village. The villagers, once so consumed by fear and resentment toward Temitope and her lineage, found themselves grappling with the consequences of their actions. The vibrant community that and thrived under their guidance now lay fractured and desolate, a stark reminder of the power they had unwittingly unleashed. In hushed conversations, the villagers began to reflect on the events that had led to Temitope's downfall. They remembered the warmth of her smile, the kindness she had shown to each of them, and the countless ways her magic had woven through their lives like a golden thread. It dawned on them that in their blind pursuit of vengeance, they had betrayed not just Temitope but the very essence of their community. As crops continued to wither and the land grew increasing barren, the villagers were forced to confront the stark reality of their situation. The elder ones divided came together in their shared grief and regret, realizing that their actions had not only harmed Temitope but also severed the fragile bond that connected them to the spirits of the land. In their attempts to rid themselves for the curse they believed Temitope had brought upon them, they had forsaken the very magic that had nurtured their livelihoods and sustained their community for generations. At night, the villagers' square, once filled with laughter and camaraderie, now echoed with silence and despair. The villagers would gather, eye downcast, as they recounted tales of Temitope's kindness, her willingness to share her knowledge, and the sacrifices she had made for their well-being. With every soul shared, the weight of their regret grew heavier, a burden they could no longer ignore. Some villagers began to speak of the bond they had once shared with Temitope, a bond that transcended her lineage as a witch. They remembered how she had brought up during the darkest of times, how her powers and healed the sick, protected the village from natural disasters, and restored balance to their lives. With each passing day, their hearts ached for the trust and respect they had squandered, longing to turn back time and undo the wrong they had inflicted. Amidst the growing weight of the regret, a determination began to emerge. The villagers realized that in order to heal, they must seek out Temitope not as an enemy, but as a daughter of Ayatoro who had been wronged. They understood that the only way to restore their community was to extend a hand of reconciliation, to acknowledge their mistake and to ask for forgiveness. Driven by his newfound resolve, a group of villagers set out to find Temitope to seek her guidance and support in mending the rift they had created. They ventured into the depths of the forest, where whispers of her presence still lingered among the ancient trees, hoping to find her and to make amends for their past. The journey was not just about finding Temitope, it was about reclaiming their own humanity and acknowledging the power of compassion and understanding that even in their darkest moments, redemption was possible. As they searched for her, the villagers carried with them the weight of their regret, hoping that by embracing their past mistakes, they could pave the way of a brighter future, one where the bonds of love and understanding would once again bind them together as a community. In that collective journey of redemption, they sought not to only to restore Temitope but also to rekindle the magic that had once flourished in Aitoro. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. Stay tuned for more.